Hello everyone, how are you all? So we would be starting with what? Exemption, undoubtedly lengthy but very simple chapter. What you have to remember in this chapter, what is exempt, what is not, that's it. Okay, so let's start with this. We are doing this revision with the summary book. If you don't have a summary book, please download it from my Telegram channel. So now first, exemption, it could be through a notification or it could be by a special order. It could be through notification or it could be from a special order. So when the government is satisfied as in public interest, it may by notification, they can generally either absolutely or subject to some condition, what they can do, they can exempt any goods or services. So when the government will do, when they feel that it is in public interest, it is necessary in public interest, then only they'll exempt, they'll issue a exemption notification. It could be general, the exemption could be absolute or subject to some condition. What do you mean by absolute exemption? It means you have to take exemption. It's not like that you'll say no, I'll not take it. No, you have to take it. It is an absolute exemption. So exemption could be either absolute, without any conditions, you have to take exemption. Second, it could be subject to some condition. That means that you have to satisfy some condition, then only your goods or services would be exempt. Then only your goods or services could be exempt. So here, exemption by notification. So if the government is satisfied that it is necessary in public interest, they can exempt by notification, generally either absolutely or subject to some condition. What? The goods or services of any specific description from whole or part of the duty. Okay, or it could be by special order. It could be by special order. Again, it is in public interest, but a special order will be issued in each case. In each case, under circumstances of exceptional nature. For example, I am importing a machinery. Why I am importing a machinery? I would be doing what? Free treatment from that machinery of few underprivileged patients. So in this case, the government saw ki, okay, the intention is very good. Let's exempt duty in their case only. If some other person is importing the same machinery, in their case, and they're charging the patient, government is not exempted in their case. It would be leviable to GST, but in my case, under circumstances of exceptional nature, by the order, government has said what? That in my case it would be exempt. I hope it is clear. Next. Now we'll see one sector, legal services. Already this chart we have seen, this is the combination of exemption plus RCM. Those who want to see for legal service and GTA, we are not repeating it again here. We have already discussed in the RCM chapter. You can please check the RCM video for legal services as well as GTA. These two things, okay, these two charts we have discussed there. Now we are coming for what? Passenger transport service. The second service is what? Passenger transport service. Okay. So what is there in the passenger transport service? Air transport. If your flight is embarking from or terminating, what? Either embarking or terminating, starting or ending. Okay, it is embarking or terminating in any of these airports. What are those airports? Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, Bagdodra, located in West Bengal. So if your flight is either embarking or terminating in any of these airports, then it is exempt. But in any other case, it is taxable. Okay, so man-BTS, that means M3A2 and that dash BTS. So if your flight is embarking from or terminating in either Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, Bagdodra, located in West Bengal, then it is exempt. Any other case, it is taxable. Now, regarding stage carriage and contract carriage, we have already seen the provisions. We are just going to see the taxability now. Non-AC contract carriage. You remember non-AC contract carriage, but if it is for tourism purpose, if you are going for a tour for tourism purpose in non-AC contract carriage, then it is taxable. Non-AC contract carriage other than tourism purpose, oh, you are already going in non-AC, that too other than tourism, government said it is exempt. AC, you are going in AC, you have money for AC, government said it will be taxable, boss, it will not be exempt. If it is AC contract carriage, it is taxable. Then non-AC stage carriage, you are going in stage carriage, but it is non-AC, then it is exempt. You are going in AC stage carriage, AC, you have money for AC, then it is taxable, government said. Then you are going from Ola, Uber, Ola, Uber, cab, radio taxi, then it is taxable. Then it is taxable. Or if you are going for non-AC stage carriage or non-AC contract carriage other than tourism, if transport supply services are supplied through ECU and notified under 9(5), then it is taxable. Then it is taxable. See, AC stage carriage and AC contract carriage other than tourism, AC stage carriage, stage carriage and AC contract carriage, they are in any case taxable. They are in any case taxable. What we are talking about, non-AC stage carriage, for example, if it is supplied through ECU and notified under 9(5), then it is taxable. Or non-AC contract carriage other than tourism, if it is supplied through ECU and notified under 9(5), then it is taxable. Then it is taxable. Okay, I hope it is clear. Very simple. Then few more entries we have seen. For example, railway ticket in AC coach first class, we have seen it is taxable. However, if it is in sleeper coach, it is exempt, boss. It is exempt. Now, ticket traveling in metro, for example, you are going from Janakpuri to Rajiv Chowk in Delhi metro, then it is exempt. Then it is exempt. Then in inland waterways from Haldia port to inland waterways is exempt. Inland waterways is exempt. This is an example only. Haldia port to Allahabad, if it is given in exam, so what you have to write, it is exempt. You have to just write in the exam, it is exempt via own notification. That's it. In this chapter, you have to remember this only, whether a particular service is exempt or taxable. That's it. Ticket of vessel from one spot to another spot in Goa other than tourism. Then other than tourism, if you are going from one spot in Goa to another spot in Goa, or in any case other than tourism, it is exempt. Other than tourism, it is exempt. But if it is for tourism, you are going from area cruise from Mumbai to Goa, then it is taxable, boss. Then it is taxable. Fare paid for meter cab is exempt. Fare paid for auto rickshaw, e-rickshaw, exempt. But if the fare paid to auto rickshaw, e-rickshaw, if transportation services are supplied through ECU and notified under 9(5), then it is taxable. Then it is taxable. Okay. So if the this auto rickshaw, e-rickshaw transported services are supplied through ECU and notified under 9(5), then it is taxable. Then it is taxable. I hope it is clear. Okay. So if you have what fare paid, you have paid the fare to whom? To auto rickshaw, e-rickshaw and transportation services are supplied through ECU and notified under 9(5), then it is taxable. Then it is taxable. Okay. So I hope it is clear. Now, GTA, this chart we have already discussed, but this one chart we will discuss of entry number 18. So the last point which we have done is a passenger transport service. The air transport we have seen, then the contract and stage carriage we have seen, then different modes of transportation we have seen. Now, in case of GTA, if the transportation of goods, okay, the first entry we will see for transportation of goods, entry number 18. By road, if the goods are transported. So, if it is transported by GTA or courier agency, it is taxable. However, in this entry, okay, by others like bullock cart, it is exempt. By others, it is exempt. But by inland waterways, it is always exempt. You are transporting goods. Last point we were discussing inland waterways, that was regarding what? Passenger transportation. The goods are transported by inland waterway, it is exempt. It is exempt. Okay. GTA courier agency, by road if it is going, then it is taxable. From this entry it is taxable. Next entry you have to see different GTA exemptions also. So this we have already seen in the chapter. So let's quickly revise this also if you don't want to jump to that chapter for this particular entry. So in case of GTA service, what you have to see, who is the recipient? Who is the recipient? If the recipient is Department of Central Government, State Government, Union Territory, Local Authority or Governmental Authority, who have taken registration for TDS deduction purpose, in that case it is exempt. If the recipient is other than 7 specified category of person, then also it is exempt. But if the recipient is one of the 7 specified category of person, then the GST is chargeable, and the GTA service supplier has the choice. What? He can take registration and pay tax under forward charge mechanism, and in that case applicable rate of GST would be 5% without ITC and 12% with ITC. However, he does not take the registration or he does not opt to pay tax under forward charge mechanism. In that case, recipient will be liable to pay GST under RCM and the applicable rate would be 5%. We have done a detailed discussion in RCM chapter. You can definitely check that. We have very quickly revised that. Now, next. Now you are transporting the following goods either by rail or by vessel or by GTA. I repeat, rail, vessel or GTA in GTA. in a goods carriage, then it is exempt. Okay, so whether you transport it by rail or by vessel or by GTA in a goods carriage, it is going to be exempt. What are those products? Agriculture produce was always exempt. Agriculture produce always exempt, they said. Then milk, salt, food grain including flour, pulses, rice exempt. Organic manure exempt. Newspaper or magazines registered with register of newspaper exempt. Relief material meant for victim of natural or man-made disaster, calamity, accident, mishap exempt. Defense or military equipment exempt. So in these cases, transportation of what you are doing, transportation of goods by rail, vessel or GTA, it would be exempt in all these cases. Agriculture produce milk, salt, food grain including flour, pulses, rice, organic manure, newspaper or magazines registered with register of newspaper, relief material meant for victim of natural or man-made disaster, calamities, accidents, mishaps, or defense or military equipment. In all these cases, it will be exempt. It will be exempt. Okay. Now next, charitable and religious related activities, charitable and religious related services. Okay. Charitable and religious related services. So for exemption of service by charitable religious trust, two conditions are necessary. First, the entity is registered under 12AA of the Income Tax Act and the entity carries out one or more of the specified charitable activities. So if the entity is registered under 12AA plus they are carrying out one or more of the specified charitable activities, in that case it is exempt. Okay, what do you mean by charitable activities? Four things are included in charitable activities. What is this entry saying? If the entity is registered under 12AA or 12AB, wherever 12AA is written in this chapter, 12AB will also come. So whenever the entity is registered under 12AA and it is carrying out the specified charitable activities, it is exempt. Okay, what do you mean by charitable activities? First of all, so public health services comes under charitable activities. Advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga comes under charitable activities. Advancement of educational programs, skill development comes under charitable activities. Preservation of environment including watershed, forest, wildlife comes under charitable activities. So these four things comes under charitable activities. These four things comes under charitable activities. What are those four things? First is public health service. Second is advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga. Third is advancement of educational program and skill development. And fourth is preservation of environment including watershed, forest and wildlife. So these four things comes under charitable activities. Four things comes under charitable activities. So whenever the entity is carrying out charitable activities plus the entity is registered under 12AA of the Income Tax Act, in this case it will come under what? Service by way of charitable or religious trust. Service by charitable or religious trust. Now, and in that case it will be exempt. Okay, 12AA of the income tax or 12AB of the income tax and they are carrying out any of these four charitable activities, in that case it would be exempt from GST and it will be, it will be exempt from GST. Next entry, service by a person by conduct of religious ceremony. Now some this Pandit ji, monk, they are doing what? They are conducting some religious ceremonies. Is this exempt? Yes, it is exempt. Now, renting of presence of a religious place by entity registered under 12A of the Income Tax Act, it is exempt. But we'll see what are the points. What do you mean by presence? First of all, it means immovable property of religious place located within the outer boundary. The word presence is not to be interpreted in a restricted manner, and all immovable property of a religious place located within the outer boundary of the complex in which religious place is located is to be considered as being located in the presence of the religious place. Renting of presence of religious place is exempt from GST. However, the exemption shall be subject to per day, per month rental limit as specified in the specific entry. We'll see what is this. Exemption shall not, you write it not. So exemption will not. So renting of presence of the religious place, is exempt, but there are limits prescribed for the same. We'll see what are the limits. So exemption shall not apply. Exemption shall not apply when the renting of rooms where charges are 1000 or more per day. What did they say? In case of renting of rooms where the charges are 1000 or more per day. So if the charges of say 2000 rupees, then exemption will not apply. That means what? It will be taxable. So if in any religious place there are rooms, the rooms are rented. If the tariff is say 500 rupees, then it would be exempt. But if the tariff is say 1500 rupees, it would be taxable. It would be taxable. Then renting of premises of community halls, Kalyan Mandap or open area and the like where charges are 10,000 or more per day. What is this? Renting of premises, community halls, Kalyan Mandap, open area and the like where charges are 10,000 or more per day, 10,000 or more per day. In that case, it would be taxable. In that case, it would be taxable. So the charges are, for example, this hall I have taken on rent, the charges are 15,000 rupees. In that case, will it be taxable? Yes, it would be taxable in that case. Why? Because it is a limit. The limit is per day. In this, the limit is per day, 10,000 or more per day. Then renting of shops, I have taken a rent in some religious place nearby that, in that same premises, I have taken a shop on rent. And in that case, it would be exempt. Say, for example, the rent is 5,000 rupees per month, then it is exempt. When it will be taxable? When the renting of shop or other space for business commerce where charges are 10,000 or more per month. When the charges are 10,000 or more per month, then it would be taxable. Then it would be taxable. When it is 10,000 or more per month, then it would be taxable. Okay. So in case of exemption, in case of renting of presence of the religious place, it is exempt, but this exemption is subject to some limits. If it is renting of rooms, then the charges are, if it is more than 10,000 or more per day, then it is taxable. Then renting of premises, community hall, Kalyan Mandap and like where the charges are 10,000 or more per day, then also it is taxable. And then renting of shops or other space for business commerce where charges are 10,000 or more per month, then also it is taxable. Then also in this taxable. So in these three cases, it would be taxable. So I hope it is clear. Next, in case of healthcare service, service by the veterinary clinic in relation to healthcare of animal or birds. So, services of veterinary clinic, are exempt from GST, So, we all know what are veterinary clinics, okay. So, they are providing services in relation to healthcare of animal or birds. So, it is exempt, Next, service by way of what? Healthcare service. What service of healthcare service? What do you mean by healthcare service? This we have already seen. If you remember, you know what? It was DTC. DTC. What is diagnosis, treatment, care? What is DTC? Diagnosis, treatment and care. Diagnosis. What does a doctor do? Diagnose, then he treats, and then he cares. So diagnosis, treatment or care of double iPad. What is double iPad? It could be for illness, injury, deformity, abnormality or pregnancy in any recognized system of medicine in India, So DTC of double iPad, Okay, so healthcare service means DTC of double iPad, and it includes transportation of the patient to and from clinical establishment. Transportation of patient to and from the clinical establishment is included in healthcare services, but it shall not include, however, it will not include what? Hair transplant or cosmetic or plastic surgery except when undertaken to restore or reconstruct anatomy or function of the body affected due to congenital defects and abnormalities, injury or trauma. So, healthcare service does not include hair transplant or plastic or cosmetic surgery. When it is included, when it is to restore or reconstruct for some injury, trauma, then it is included, otherwise not. So what do you mean by healthcare service is exempt? Healthcare service means what? DTC for double iPad. It includes transportation of patient to and from clinical establishment, and it does not include hair transplant or cosmetic or plastic surgery except when it is required to restore what? Any injury or trauma. So healthcare services are exempt. Healthcare service by clinical establishment, it could be by authorized medical practitioner or paramedics. It is exempt, okay. So healthcare service by either clinical establishment or authorized medical practitioner or paramedics exempt. However, nothing contained in this entry shall apply to service provided by a clinical establishment by way of providing room, Having room charges exceeding 5,000 per day to a person receiving healthcare service. So what does they said? They said ki nothing contained in this entry will apply to the service by clinical establishment when the room charges are exceeding 5,000 per day, then the exemption is not applicable. So when the room rent is more than 5,000, then the exemption is not applicable. In that case, it would be taxable. It would be taxable. But if the room charges of ICU, ICCU, NICCU, in these case, if it is more than 5,000, then it is okay. Then it is okay. Generally, the room charges of ICUs and all are more. So that will be exempt in that case also. But normal room, if it is more than 5,000, then it is not exempt. Okay, next. Service by transportation of patient in an ambulance. So now what is the service? You are providing service of transportation of patient in an ambulance other than specified in A above. So anyone providing. See, in A point, the services by clinical establishment, authorized medical practitioner or paramedics are exempt. Healthcare services are exempt. In the definition of healthcare service, transportation of patient comes. But the B point is not for clinical establishment, authorized medical practitioner or paramedics. It is for everyone. Even I can provide the service of transportation of patient in an ambulance. Even I can provide a service of transportation of patient in an ambulance. So service provided by transportation of patient in an ambulance other than specified in A above, that will also be exempt. That will also be exempt. So transportation of patient in an ambulance, that would be what? Exempt. That would be exempt. Next, 74A entry we will see. Service by rehab professionals. Rehab professional recognized under Rehab Council of India by way of rehabilitation therapy or counseling, RTC. RTC. Rehabilitation therapy or counseling. What does it say? Rehabilitation therapy or counseling. Rehabilitation therapy or counseling. And such other activity as covered by the said act at medical establishment. It could be at educational institute, rehab centers established by central government, state government, union territory, or any entity registered under 12AA of the Income Tax Act. So what is the service? Service is by rehab professionals. Rehab professional recognized under Rehab Act of RTC, rehabilitation therapy or counseling, and such activity as covered by the said act at medical establishment, educational institute or rehab centers. Okay, what is the service? RTC, the rehabilitation therapy or counseling, at all these places it would be exempt. It would be exempt. Okay, now next. Only recognized system of medicine are exempt under GST. This we have seen in the healthcare services where recognized system of medicines are exempt. What are the recognized system of medicines in India? It could be allopathy, Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Yoga, naturopathy, homeopathy, or any other system of medicine that may be recognized by the central government. So these recognized system of medicines are exempt from GST. Okay. Now, next is food supplied to patient. So in case of food supplied to the patient, what we have to see? Whether the patient is admitted. If the patient is admitted, then it is the food supplied to the patient as per the advice of doctor and nutritionist. It is a part of composite supply, obviously. He is not there to enjoy the food. It is a part of the composite supply of healthcare service. The principal supply is healthcare service and it will not be taxable since healthcare service is exempt. It will also be exempt. But food supplied to patient which is not admitted, for example, I went to a hospital for OPD, I went to their canteen, I just had a masala dosa, so in that case I am not admitted there, so in that case it would be taxable, and food supplied to patient by others like doctors, visitors, staff and all these, in this case it would be taxable, okay. So this is regarding food supplied to the patients, Now, next is service provided by educational institute. Educational institute is providing services to SFS, student faculty staff, if educational institute is providing any services, okay, by education institute, any services to their student, to their staff, to their faculty, it is exempt from GST, no GST on that. Next, service by way of conduct of entrance examination against consideration in the form of entrance fees are exempt. Now, anyone conducting entrance examination, not necessarily educational institute, anyone conducting entrance examination for consideration will be what? Entrance fees. So, entrance fees will be exempt from GST. No GST will be levied. Okay, conduct of any examination. Third, service provided to educational institute. What they are saying? To educational institute by way of. Now, see these first 3 points First 3 points here, that is transportation of student, faculty, staff, catering and security cleaning service. This is applicable for which educational institute? Preschool and higher secondary school. Preschool and higher secondary school, that we'll see. Okay, so services provided to educational institute. If to educational institute, then transportation of student, faculty and staff. For example, I am providing service of transportation. I am providing service of transportation to educational institute. To educational institute, what? Transportation of student, faculty, staff. That would be exempt from GST. That would be exempt from GST. Then catering services exempt from GST. Catering exempt from GST. Okay, I am providing catering services to education institute. It will be exempt from GST, including any midday meal scheme sponsored by central government, state government or union territory. Including what? Midday meal schemes. Midday meal schemes. Okay, so that would be exempt from GST. Okay, so catering services. Now the catering services can be provided by private person also. Midday meals by central government also, not a problem. Anyone. Okay, so that would be exempt from GST. Then I am providing, for example, security, cleaning, housekeeping services in educational institute. That is also exempt from GST. Exempt from GST. Okay. So, three things are exempt from GST for preschool and higher secondary school. I repeat, preschool and higher secondary school. The first is transportation of student, faculty, staff. Second is catering services. Third is security, cleaning, housekeeping services. If these services are provided to educational institute, which educational institute? Preschool and higher secondary school, then it is exempt from GST. Then it is exempt from GST. I hope it is clear. Now, service relating to admission to or conduct of examination. Admission and conduct of examination by educational institute. All the educational institutes, it is exempt. All kind of educational institute, it is exempt. And last, service of supply of online education journal and periodicals. Online education journal and periodicals, it is exempt only in case of the educational institute whose qualification are recognized by law. Whose qualification are recognized by law. In that case, it would be exempt. In that case, it would be exempt. What? Supply of online educational journals or periodicals. Supply of online education journals or periodicals, it will be exempt in case the qualification are recognized by law educational institute. So, what do you mean by educational institute? Also, we'll see. Educational institute means institute providing service by way of either preschool, higher secondary school. Then education as a part of curriculum for obtaining qualification recognized by law, or education as a part of approved vocational courses. They all come under educational institute. But when you are providing services to an educational institute, first 3 points would be exempt only in case of preschool, higher secondary school, and online education journal will be exempt only in case of qualification recognized by law. I hope it is clear. Now, conduct of degree courses by college, university, institute, is it covered in clause number 2? What is clause number 2? Education as a part of curriculum for obtaining qualification recognized by law for the timing in force. Yes. So, the conduct of degree courses, university, these are covered. These courses led to grant of qualification recognized by law. Then training given by private coaching institute. The private training institutes, private coaching institutes are also giving training. So, is it covered in clause number 2? No, it is not covered. They does not lead to grant of qualification which is recognized by law. And education is a part of prescribed curriculum for obtaining qualification recognized by law of a foreign country. Then is it covered in clause number 2? No, it is not covered. Education as a part of prescribed curriculum for obtaining qualification recognized by law of foreign country is also not covered. IIMs are now covered under the definition of educational institute whose services are exempt under section number, entry number 66. So, IIMs are now covered under the definition of educational institute. Now, see, IIMs also run short-term courses, certificate courses like 1 month or so. So, those qualifications are not recognized by law. That will not be exempt. But the IIM conduct which graduation courses and the PG courses, that would be exempt. Okay, for that they are educational institute and GST would be exempt on the same. Now, composite and mixed supply in so far as lodging education is concerned. So, now there is one circular on that the boarding schools you all know boarding schools. So boarding schools provide, you know, lodging, accommodation service, education service, along with that lodging, accommodation services also. So in this case, how the taxability would be done? So now it will be a composite supply. For example, our boarding school is charging 2,50,000 per year from a student. So it is a part of what? Composite supply. Composite supply, in which principal supplies of education, since education is exempt from GST, it will be also exempt. Okay. Now, maritime training institutes are what? Educational institute, and the courses conducted by them are exempt from the levy of GST, subject to fulfillment of other conditions. Okay. So maritime training institute are under what? Educational institute only. Next is service by way of training or coaching. What is the service? Training or coaching. Training or coaching in what? Recreational activities. Recreational activities relating to art, culture by an individual, or sports by charitable entities registered under 12AA or AB of the Income Tax Act. So what is the service? It is of training or coaching. The service is of training or coaching in what? Recreational activities relating to what? All art or culture, relating to what? Art or culture by individual, or training or coaching in what? Sports. Training or coaching in sports by charitable entities registered under 12AA or AB of the Income Tax Act. AB of the Income Tax Act. So this is what the, you know, this is what is the exempt. The training and coaching in arts or culture by individual is exempt, and training and coaching by in sports by charitable entities is exempt. Next, agriculture related activities. What is this? So these following services, if you are providing for agriculture produce, then it is exempt. So in detail we'll see what is it. You are providing any service by way of either cultivation of plant or rearing of all form of animal except rearing of horses. It will be for what you would be doing? Cultivation of plant or rearing of all form of animal. It could be or either for food, fiber, fuel, raw material, other similar product, or agriculture produce. Then the following activities are exempt. What are those activities? First is agriculture operations. What you are doing? Agriculture operations which are directly what? Directly related to agriculture operations, which are directly related to the production of agriculture produce. Okay. So agriculture operations which are directly related to the production of agriculture produce are exempt, including what? Cultivation, harvesting, threshing, plant protection, or testing. So including anything, it could be anything. It could be cultivation, harvesting, threshing, plant protection, or testing. It would be exempt. Then supply of farm labor. What is this? Supply of farm labor. You are supplying farm labor. For example, for agriculture produce, you are supplying farm labor. So your services would be exempt from GST. Then whatever processes you are carrying out, at agriculture farm, including tending, pruning, cutting, harvesting, drying, cleaning, trimming, sun drying, fumigating, curing, anything, sorting, grading, cooling, bulk packaging, and like operation. Now what is important? Which do not alter the essential characteristics of agriculture produce. But make it only marketable for primary market. But it is making it marketable for what? Primary market. Then it is exempt from GST. So whatever process is carried out at agricultural farm, whatever process you are carrying out at agriculture farm, it could be any process, which do not alter the essential characteristics of agriculture produce. Which do not alter what? Essential characteristics of agriculture produce, but make it only marketable for primary market. Then it is exempt. So which do not alter the essential characteristics of agriculture produce, but make it only marketable. But it makes only marketable for agriculture, for primary market. Okay. So these processes, whatever you are carrying out, it should not what? Alter the essential characteristics of agriculture produce, but making it marketable for the primary market. Like for example, what you are doing, the agriculture produce, you are just, you are just what doing? Just fumigating it or cleaning it just to remove the insects, so that it will become marketable. You are not doing any packing and or the things like it will alter the essential characteristics. Like for example, if you are making potato chips out of potato, then this process is, it is not for making it marketable. It is altogether a different process. The essential characteristics are changed. So in this case, the potato chips are not agriculture produce. However, the potato is an agriculture produce. Okay, you are washing the potatoes, removing the insects. That's okay. That is okay. Why? Because it does not alter the essential characteristics of potato and just making it marketable for the primary market. Making it marketable for the primary market. Next, renting or leasing of agro machinery or vacant land with or without structure incidental to its use. So, what is this? Renting or leasing of agro machinery. Renting or leasing of agro machinery or vacant land with or without structure incidental to its use. Incidental to its use. So, renting or leasing of agro machinery, renting or leasing of agro machinery. You are taking on rent or you are leasing what? Agro machinery or vacant land with or without structure incidental to its use. With or without structure incidental to its use. Loading, unloading, packing, storing or warehousing of agriculture produce. Loading, unloading, packing, storage. Loading, unloading, packing, storage or warehousing of what? Agriculture produce. Agriculture produce. That is also what? Exempt from GST. You are loading, you are unloading, you are packing, you are storing, you are warehousing what? Agriculture produce. That is also exempt from GST. Then agriculture extension services, training to farmers and all those. So those are also exempt from GST. Service by APMC. What is APMC? Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee. Service by APMC, Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee or board, or service provided by a commission agent for sale or purchase of agriculture produce. For sale or purchase of agriculture produce. So, service by APMC, service by APMC, Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee, service by APMC, Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee or board, or service provided by a commission agent, or whatever the services commission agent is providing. For what they are providing? For sale or purchase of agriculture produce. For sale or purchase of agriculture produce. So, it is exempt. So, it is exempt. So, any agriculture operation you are carrying out directly related to production of agriculture produce, exempt. Supplying farm labor, exempt. Any process carried out by agricultural farm, exempt, which do not alter the essential characteristics of agriculture produce but only making it what? Marketable for primary market. And then renting or leasing of agro machinery or vacant land, exempt. Loading, unloading, packing, storing, warehousing of agriculture produce, exempt. Agriculture extension services, exempt. Services by APMC or by a commission agent for sale or purchase of agriculture produce, exempt. So these all services are what? Exempt. Exempt. For food, fiber, fuel, raw material, a similar product, or for agriculture produce, all these services are exempt. All these services are exempt. What is agriculture produce? Like potato is an agriculture produce. However, potato chips, we have seen the essential characteristics has altered. So these are non-agriculture produce. Likewise, tomato is an agriculture produce. However, tomato ketchup is not an agriculture produce. Vegetable fruits, agriculture produce, but vegetable fruit juice are not agriculture produce. Likewise, wheat and agriculture produce. Wheat flour is an it is a non-agriculture produce. So you should know what is agriculture produce and what are non-agriculture produce. The services related to agriculture produces are exempt from GST. Okay. Next, service by way of loading, unloading, packing, storage or warehousing of rice. What is this? Loading, unloading, packing, warehouse or storage of rice. So this is a different entry. Rice is not a agriculture produce. Then also for a rice, there is a separate entry number 24, which is saying what? If you are loading, if you are unloading, if you are packing, if you are storing, if you are warehousing, what? Rice, it is exempt from GST. It is exempt from GST. Okay. Service by way of warehousing of minor forest produce. Warehousing of minor forest produce. So, any service related to warehousing, any service related to warehousing of what? Minor forest produce, it is also exempt from GST. It is also exempt from GST. Service by way of storage, warehousing of cereal, pulses, fruits and vegetables. Four things. Cereal, pulses, fruits and vegetables. Cereal, pulses, fruits and vegetables. What you are doing? You are storing or warehousing. You are storing or warehousing. It would be exempt from GST. It would be exempt from GST. Service by way of artificial insemination of livestock other than horses. So, artificial insemination of livestock also exempt from GST. Next, service of pre-cooling, preconditioning, ripening, waxing, retail packing, labeling of what? Fruits and vegetables. What I am talking about? Fruits and vegetables. We do there are pre-cooling and all these services are given. Cold storage services like, so the preconditioning, pre-cooling, ripening, waxing, retail packing, labeling, fruits, vegetables, we do not change the alter the essential characteristics of fruits and vegetables, that is also exempt from GST. That is also exempt from GST. So I hope this is all clear. Okay, these are the activities which are exempt from GST. Exempt from GST. Next is service by an unincorporated body or non-profit entity. So what is the service? What is the service? Service is by in an unincorporated body or a non-profit entity. So unincorporated body or non-profit entity giving services to their own members, then it is exempt. It could be by way of reimbursement of charges or share of contribution, anything. So any body giving, unincorporated body giving services to their own members, it is exempt. With services, it could be as a trade union, exempt. It could be for provision for carrying out any activity which is exempt from GST. They are giving services to their members, which services they are giving, which is itself exempt from GST under any exemption entry, then also it is exempt. And then if it is an up to amount of 7,500 per month per member, for example, the maintenance charges up to 7,500 per month per member, for what? Why the Residential Welfare Association takes the maintenance charges? For sourcing of goods and services from a third person. Why they are doing it? Sourcing of goods and services from a third person for common use of its members. For common use of its members in a housing society or residential complex, then it is exempt. Then it is exempt from GST. Okay, so up to an amount of 7,500 per month per member for sourcing of goods or services from a third person for common use of its members in a housing society or residential complex, then it is also exempt from GST. Then it is exempt from GST. Okay, up to amount of what? 7,500 per month per member for sourcing of goods or services. From where you are sourcing goods and services? From a third person you are sourcing the goods or services. Okay, like security services, cleaning services, for that they charge the maintenance. So up to 7,500 it is exempt. Now opening the main book, you remember we have seen this diagram in the class. The Residential Welfare Association. What? The Residential Welfare Association aggregate turnover is say up to 20 lakhs. Up to 20 lakhs, the 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs aggregate turnover. You tell me, are they required to take registration? No, they are not required to take registration. Registration is not required. Registration is not required. So in this case, the monthly maintenance charges, even if it is less than 7,500, 7,500 or 7,000, more than 7,500, doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference. No GST is required. No GST is required. Okay. So if the aggregate turnover of the Residential Welfare Association, if the aggregate turnover of the Resident Welfare Association is up to 20 lakhs rupees, then registration is not required. Then if the monthly maintenance is anything 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, GST is not levied. GST is not levied. But if the aggregate turnover is more than 20 lakhs, if the aggregate turnover is more than 20 lakhs, then registration is compulsory. Then registration is compulsory. Then registration is compulsory. The Residential Welfare Association has to get registered. Now, if the monthly maintenance charges is up to 7,500, then it is exempt from GST. But if the monthly maintenance charges are more than 7,500, then it is not exempt. And it is taxable. And Resident Welfare Association are entitled to take ITC. They can take the ITC of GST paid by them on capital goods, inputs and input services. Okay, so this is what the taxability of what the taxability and the exemption part of the maintenance charges. Okay, so up to 7,500 exempt. Now, service by unincorporated body or non-profit entity under any law for the time being in force. So who is giving the service? Unincorporated body or the non-profit entity. Under any law for the time being in force, engaged in what? Activities relating to welfare of industrial or agriculture labor or farmers. Relating to what? Activities relating to welfare of industrial or agriculture labor or farmers. So who is giving the service? Service is being provided by unincorporated body or the non-profit entity. Of activities relating to what? Welfare of industrial or agriculture labor or farmers. This is exempt from GST. Welfare of industrial or agriculture labor or farmer, which is exempt from GST. So any activity by the body or in a non-profit entity for what? Welfare of industrial. It could be industrial, it could be agriculture, labor or farmers. It is exempt from GST. Next, promotion of. So any services given by unincorporated body or non-profit entity for promotion of trade, commerce, industry, agriculture, arts, science, literature, culture, sports, education, social welfare, charitable activities and protection of environment to its own members. So it could be anything, it could be anything against consideration in the form of membership fees. If the membership fees is up to 1000 per member per year, then it is exempt from GST. So membership fees up to 1000 per member per year is exempt from GST. It could be for promotion of trade, commerce, industry, agriculture, anything. Okay, so up to 1000 per month per member, it is exempt from GST. Now next, regarding accommodation services. Accommodation services, what does it say? Service by way of renting of residential dwelling for users' residence. We'll study this much right now first. What is the service exempt? Renting of residential dwelling for users' residence. What is the service? Renting of residential dwelling for users' residence. Renting of residential dwelling for users' residence. It is exempt from GST. It is exempt from GST except where the residential dwelling is rented to a registered person. But if the residential dwelling is rented to a registered person, then it is not exempt from GST. Then it is not exempt from GST. Then it is taxable, and taxes payable on reverse charge basis by the recipient. We have seen the registered person will pay the tax. What is exempt? Renting of residential dwelling for users' residence. Residential dwelling for users' residence is exempt. Except if residential dwelling is rented to a registered person. But if the residential dwelling you are renting it to the registered person, in that case it is taxable, and taxes payable by the registered person on the reverse charge. Taxes payable by the registered person on reverse charge basis. This is one thing. Now, for the purpose of exemption under this entry, the entry shall cover service by way of renting of residential dwelling to a registered person where the registered person is a proprietor of a proprietorship concern and rents the residential dwelling in his personal capacity for use as his residence. What does it say? Service by way of, for the purpose of exemption under this entry, it will cover renting of residential dwelling to registered person also. To get exemption under this entry, it will cover residential dwelling to registered person also, in which case, only one case, if the registered person is a proprietor. Registered person is a proprietor and he rents residential dwelling in personal capacity for use as residence, and it is on his own account. So now if I am renting the residential dwelling to a registered person, generally it is taxable and reverse charge by the recipient. However, if I have rented to registered person, but registered person is using for his purpose, his family is living on his own account for personal purpose, in that case, even if he is registered, he is carrying out some business, that doesn't make a difference. It will be exempt. So there are 2-3 possibilities in this case. I hope, 1 second, we'll do this only. So renting, if you are renting what? Residential dwelling. Okay, you are renting the residential dwelling to some registered person. So first we'll see, you are a registered person, you are renting a residential dwelling to an unregistered person. Renting of residential dwelling to unregistered person, totally exempt from GST. Okay, to an unregistered person you are renting a residential dwelling, you are registered, you are unregistered, doesn't make a difference, it will be exempt from GST. The second situation arises, you are renting the residential dwelling, you are renting the residential dwelling to a registered person. So in that case, it is generally taxable under reverse charge, and the tax will be payable by the registered person under reverse charge. However, now the third situation arises, you are renting it to the registered person, but registered person is using for his own account for personal purpose. In that case, it is exempt from GST. And it will not be taxable. To a registered person, when he is using it for personal purpose on his own account for his home, for example, then it is exempt. When it will be taxable? Only it will be taxable when he is using it for its business purpose or something like so. In all other cases, it would be taxable. Okay, so if you are renting it to an unregistered person, No problem at all. It will always be exempt from GST. What? Renting of residential dwelling. But if you're renting it to registered person, then there are two possibilities. One is if he is using it for personal purpose on his own account, then it is exempt. Otherwise, it would be taxable. Otherwise, it would be taxable. I hope it is clear. Next, sport related activities. Sport related activities. Service provided to recognized sports body. Service provided to recognized sports body. To recognized sport body as by an individual as a player, referee, umpire, coach or team manager. Player, referee, umpire, coach or team manager. Player, referee, umpire, coach or team manager for participation in an sporting event organized by the recognized sports body. So here, if the service is provided to a recognized sports body, services provided to recognized sports body, who is providing an individual who is a player, referee, umpire, coach or team manager. So in that case, it is exempt from GST. It is exempt from GST. Then service provided to a recognized sports body by another recognized sports body. If another recognized sports body is providing to recognized sport body, then it is exempt. However, services by selectors, commentators, curators, technical experts are taxable. So what is exempt here? Only 5 persons providing services to the recognized sports body is exempt, that is player, referee, umpire, coach or team manager. But if you are a commentator, selector, technical experts, then it is taxable. Or one recognized body providing to another recognized body, then also it is exempt from GST. Next, service by way of sponsorship of sporting event. So you have to just read it once. Sponsorship of sporting event. Sponsorship of sporting event is exempt. It could be by national sports federation, affiliated federations, then where the team or individual can be from district, zone or country, then by association of Indian university or interested university sports board, school game of Federation of India, All India Sports Council for Deaf, Paralympic Committee for India, Special Olympic Bharat, or by the Central Civil Services Cultural and Sports Board as a part of national games by the Indian Olympic Association, or under Panchayat Yuva Krida Khel Abhiyan scheme. You just have to read it once. What is the service which is exempt here? Is service of sponsorship of sporting event. Sponsorship of sporting event is exempt here. Next, art related activities. So what is the service? We'll see. Service by way of performance in a service by an artist by way of performance in folk or classical art form of music dance theatre MDT. Music dance theatre. What is the service? Service by the artist by way of performance in folk or classical art form of music dance theatre MDT is exempt provided the consideration for such performances not more than 1,50,000. The consideration is not more than 1,50,000, then it is exempt. What? Folk or classical art form of MDT, music dance theatre. Folk or classical art form of music dance theatre is exempt if the consideration is not more than 1,50,000. Further, all other activities by an artist in other art forms like western music, dance, modern theatres, performance of actors in films, other television series would be taxable. So other art forms, all activities in other art forms like music, western music, dance, modern theatres, performance of actors in films, television serials, everything is taxable. What is exempt? We have seen classical folk or classical form of MDT. If the consideration is not more than 1,50,000, then it is exempt. But other art forms like western music, dance, modern theatre, performance of actors, television series, it would all be taxable. Similarly, activities of artists in still art forms like painting, sculpture, making are taxable. So activities of what? Artists in other art forms like painting, sculpture and all are taxable. However, the exemption shall not apply to service provided by such artist as a brand ambassador. If the service is providing by the artist as a brand ambassador, then also it is not exempt. In all cases, it will be taxable. The exemption will not apply. Clearly, it is written exemption will not apply if the person is providing services as a brand ambassador. So, even if when you are providing service as a brand ambassador, the consideration is say 75,000. Is this taxable? Yes, it is taxable. In case of western music, the consideration is say 20,000 rupees. Is it taxable? Yes, it is taxable. What is exempt? Folk or classical art form, when the consideration is not more than 1,50,000, only in this case it would be exempt. Only in this case it would be exempt. Next, construction services. Next is what? Construction services we'll see. Service provided by way of pure labor contracts. What is the service? Services of pure labor contract. Pure labor contract of construction, erection, commissioning, installation, completion, fitting out, repair, maintenance, renovation, alteration of a civil structure or other original work pertaining to beneficiary-led individual house construction or enhancement under the Housing for All Urban Mission or Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So, what is the service which is exempt? Pure labor contract. It could be for construction, erection, commissioning, installation, completion, fitting out, anything. What is this? Pure labor contract is exempt. Pure labor contract is exempt for Housing for All Urban Mission or Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Housing for All Urban Mission or Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, pure labor contracts are exempt. Pure labor contracts are exempt. I hope it is clear. Next, service supplied by electricity distribution utilities. What is the service? Service is supplied by electricity distribution utilities. Electricity distribution utilities by way of construction, erection, commissioning, installation, infrastructure for extending electricity distribution network up to what? Tube well of the farmer or agriculturalist for agriculture use. So, the services which electricity distribution utilities are given by way of either construction, erection, commissioning, anything, installation of infrastructure, but for what? For extending electricity distribution, for extending electricity distribution up to what? Up to tube well of farmer or agriculturist, up to tube well of farmer or agriculturist for agriculture use, then it is exempt. Then it is exempt. So, here for extending electricity distribution network up to tube well of farmer or agriculturist for agriculture use, it would be exempt. It would be exempt. Next, service by way of pure labor contracts of construction, erection, commissioning, installation of original work pertaining to what? Single residential unit, otherwise then as a part of residential complex, it is exempt. So, if any service is given by way of what? Pure labor contract. Again, what? Pure labor contract. The contract could be for erection, construction, commissioning, installation, anything, but it should be for what? A single residential unit. Residential unit. It would be for a residential unit. Single. For example, I am making my home. Okay, my single residential unit. For that, I have taken services of what? Pure labor contracts of construction, erection, commissioning. That all would be exempt from GST for my single residential unit. Otherwise, as a part of a residential complex, it is not applicable. Obviously, exemption is not applicable for residential complex. Single residential unit, any pure labor services, it would be exempt from GST. Exempt from GST. Okay. Next, service provided by the specified bodies. Services provided by the specified bodies. Now, there are different bodies. If they are providing the services, it will be exempt from GST. It will be exempt from GST. Like services by ESIC to person covered under ESIC Act. Services by ESIC to persons covered by the ESIC Act, it would be exempt from GST. It would be exempt from GST. Then services provided by EPF, Employee Provident Fund Organization, to persons governed under EPF and Miscellaneous Provisions Act, it would also be exempt from GST. Then services by Coal Mines Provident Fund Organization to persons covered by Coal Mines Provident Fund and Provisions Act, it will also be exempt from GST. Then services by NPS, National Pension System Trust, to its members against consideration in the form of administrative fees is exempt from GST. Consideration in the form of administrative fees is exempt from GST. Okay, so these services are exempt from GST. One is ESIC, services which ESIC is given to person governed under ESIC Act. Then EPF, organization giving the services to the person governed by its act. The Coal Mine Provident Fund is giving services to its members, the one who are governed by this act. And the National Pension System is giving services to its members, then also it is exempt. So, all these are exempt from GST. All these are exempt from GST. Next is leasing service. In case of leasing service, we have seen a diagram. We'll do it with the help of that diagram. So, remember, in case of leasing service, long-term lease of industrial plots, is exempt. So, any upfront amount, it could be called as premium, salami, development charges, anything, by the State government industrial development corporation undertaking entity having 20% or more ownership of central government, state government, union territory to industrial units for development of any industrial or financial business area, and grant of long-term lease, of 30 years or more, it will what? This would be exempt from GST. The grant of long-term lease of 30 years or more, it would be exempt from GST. This supply of service would be exempt from GST. Any upfront amount premium, salami, development charges would be exempt. Who is giving the service? State government, industrial development corporation, undertaking or entity having 20% or more ownership of central government, state government, union territory to industrial units for development of any industrial or financial business area, any upfront amount in the form of premium, salami, development charges, it would be what? This would be exempt from GST. The grant of long-term lease, it will be exempt from GST provided you satisfy the following conditions. What are those conditions that we'll see? First, the lease plot shall be used for the purpose for which it is allotted. The leased plot should be used for the purpose for which it has been allotted. First thing. Second, in case of violation or change, the original lessor lessee and the subsequent lessor buyer shall be jointly and severally be liable. In case there is any violation, or change, then the lessor and lessee, both original as well as subsequent, will be jointly and severally be liable. Okay, you have to remember this much only now for long-term lease. Next, service provided by government. So the services which are being provided by government, who is the provider of service? Government. So service provided by governmental authority by way of any activity in relation to function entrusted to a municipality of the constitution are exempt. So service by what? Governmental authority by way of any activity in relation to function entrusted to municipality are exempt from GST. Then service by governmental authority by way of any activity in relation to function entrusted to panchayat of the would be exempt from GST. Then service by government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority, any service by any government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority, excluding the following services. Okay, so the following services that we'll see, you remember A to C, which we have studied earlier also. A to C is always taxable under forward share. See, something is, exception to the exemption entry. Something which is excluded from the exemption entry means that is taxable. And in the reverse charge entry also it has been excluded. So that means what? It is taxable under forward charge. So it is first two things are there. Okay. So for these 3 points, what? Service by Department of Post and Ministry of Railways, Indian Railways. Then service in relation to aircraft or vessel inside or outside the presence of the port or airport. And then transportation of the goods or passenger. These 3 things. Transportation of goods and passenger. So these 3 things, these services, what? Service of Department of Post or Ministry of Railway. Then service in relation to aircraft or vessel inside or outside the presence of the port or airport. And third, transportation of goods and passengers. These 3 services, these are excluded from exemption entry. That means they are taxable. First thing. Second, they are excluded from RCM entry also. That means they are taxable under forward charge. These services, even if provided by government, are taxable under forward charge. A, B and C. And last, any service other than A to C provided to business entity. So any services other than A to C, if provided to business entity, that is also taxable. Anything other than A to C, any other service which the government is provided to business entity, that is taxable. But that is taxable under reverse charge. In reverse charge, we have seen any service other than this provided to business entity, tax will be payable by business entity under reverse charge. So A to C is taxable under forward charge, D point is taxable under reverse charge. I hope it is clear. Next. Again, services by government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority to business entity. To whom they are giving the service? Business entity. Where such amount in the preceding financial year as its make it eligible from registration under the CGST Act. That means what? The business entity's turnover is that much that it is not required to take registration up to the threshold limit. So for example, business entity's turnover is 5 lakh rupees. They are not required to take registration. So then it is exempted. Government is providing to a business entity whose aggregate turnover is up to threshold limit. Then it is exempted. Then any services to business entity also is exempted. For the purpose of this entry, it is hereby clarified that the provision of this entry is not applicable to ABC of entry number 6 above. What is ABC? This we have seen. So this is always taxable under forward charge. This ABC, Department of Post, Ministry of Railway Services, then aircraft vessel services inside or outside the presence of the port or airport, and transportation of goods and passengers. This A to C is always taxable. This A to C is always taxable. A to C is always taxable, okay, and it is taxable under forward charge. It is taxable under forward charge, okay. So this is always taxable. And then service by way of renting of motor vehicle. Service by way of what? Renting of motor vehicle. Renting of motor vehicle. So for renting of motor vehicle, sorry, I'm very sorry. Service of renting of immovable property. Service of a renting of immovable property. What we have seen, it is if the renting of immovable property is provided to a registered person, then registered person is required to pay tax under RCM. This RCM entry we have seen, okay. Next, service by the government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority to another central government, state government, union territory, local authority. So government to government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority to central government, state government, union territory, local authority. Then it is exempt. Then it is exempt. Nothing contained in this entry shall apply to ABC of entry number 6 above. Nothing will apply to ABC of 6 above. That is again ABC is what? Department of Post, Ministry of Railway, Aircraft Vessel Services and Transportation of Goods and Passengers. So ABC of 6 above, it is always taxable under forward charge. It is taxable under forward charge. It is always taxable under forward charge, okay. Next, services by government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority, where consideration does not exceed 5,000, where consideration does not exceed 5,000. So when the services are provided by government and consideration does not exceed 5,000, then it is what? Again exempt from GST. Exempt from GST. Nothing contained in this entry shall apply to again ABC of 6 above. ABC of 6 above always taxable under forward charge. Always taxable under forward charge. I hope it is clear. Now, so what is this entry? This entry is when the service is provided by government and consideration is up to what? Does not exceed 5,000, then it is exempt from GST. Exempt from GST. In case of continuous supply of service, this limit, how we have to see? The exemption shall apply where the consideration charged for service does not exceed 5,000 in financial year. This 5,000 is for a financial year. This 5,000 is for a financial year. This limit we have to see is for the financial year. I hope it is clear. Next. Service by government entity, service or by a government entity to central government, state government, union territory, local authority or any person specified by central government, state government, union territory, local authority against consideration received from central government, state government, union territory in the form of grants. Grants are also exempt from GST. In exam, if the grants is given, government grants, it is exempt from GST. So, the service which is provided by government entity, by government, who is providing the service? Government entity. To whom they are providing the service? Central government, state government, union territory, local authority or any person specified by central government, state government, union territory, local authority against consideration. From where the consideration is received? From central government, state government, union territory, local authority in the form of grants. So, service by government entity to government or any person specified by government against consideration received from government in the form of grants, exempt from GST. Grants exempt from GST. Next, services by old age home. Who is giving the service? Old age home. Old age home run by central government, state government or entity registered under 12AA of the Income Tax Act. So, who is giving the service? Services by old age home. Old age home. Okay. So, services by old age home run by central government, state government or entity registered under 12AA of the Income Tax Act to its residents aged 60 years or more against consideration up to 25,000 per month per member, provided the consideration charge is inclusive of charges for boarding, lodging and maintenance. So, the services which are given by the old age home which is run by the government or entity registered under 12AA, to whom it is given? To resident whose age is 60 years or more, consideration up to 25,000 including lodging, boarding, everything, and that would be exempt from GST. That would be exempt from GST. Okay. Next. Services supplied by central government, state government, union territory to their undertakings or PSU by way of guaranteeing the loans taken by such undertaking or PSU from the banking company financial institute. So what is this? The services which are supplied by government, services which are supplied by government to their undertakings or PSU, services which is provided by government to their undertaking or PSU by way of what? Guaranteeing the loan taken by such undertaking. Guaranteeing the loan undertaken by such undertaking or PSU from the banking company financial institute, that is exempt from GST. That is exempt from GST. Okay. So the services which are supplied by government to their undertaking or PSU by way of what? Guaranteeing the loans taken by such undertaking or PSU from the banking company financial institute, that is exempt from GST. That is exempt from GST. Next, services provided by government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority. Services provided by government by way of registration required under any law for the time being in force. Any kind of registrations, we take registrations and different kind of registrations we have to take under different laws. So all those registration fees is again exempt from GST. GST is not charged on the registrations required under any law for the time being in force. Next, services by the government regarding testing, calibration, safety checks, certification relating to protection or safety of workers, consumer, public at large, including fire license required under any law for the time being in force. So services by government by way of testing, calibration, safety check, certification relating to protection or safety of worker, consumer, public at large, including fire license required under any law for the time being in force, that is also exempt from GST. That is also exempt from GST. Next, services provided by government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority. So these people are providing all the services of by way of issuance of passport, visa. So any charges like passport, issue of passport, visa, driving license, birth certificate, death certificate. So any charges which are levied that are exempt from GST for issuance of all these documents, GST is not levied, it is exempt from GST. Okay. So services by government by way of issuance of any, passport, visa, driving license, birth certificate, death certificate. So all these are exempt from GST. All these are exempt from GST. Then service by central government, state government, union territory, local authority by way of what? Tolerating non-performance of a contract for which consideration in the form of fine or liquidated damages is payable to the government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority under such contract. So services by what? Services by the government, central government, state government, union territory, local authority by way of what? Tolerating non-performance of a contract. Tolerating non-performance of a contract for which consideration in the form of fine or liquidated damages is payable to the central government, state government, union territory, local authority under such contract. So it is also exempt from GST. These fines, these liquidated damages are exempt from GST. Next, service by, again government is giving the services by way of what? Right to use natural resources to an individual farmer. What is the service they are giving? Right to use natural resources to individual farmer for cultivation of plant, rearing of all form of animals except rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel, raw material or similar product. So any service which the government is giving for what? Assignment of right to use natural resources to a individual farmer, is exempt from GST. Exempt from GST. And then service by Department of Post. This service of Department of Post only is exempt. Rest are taxable under forward charge, we have seen. Only this is exempt. Which one? Service by Department of Post by way of postcard, inland letter, book post, ordinary post of envelope weighing less than 10 grams. Okay. So service by Department of Post by way of postcard, inland letter, book post, ordinary post of envelopes weighing less than 10 grams is exempt from GST. It is exempt from GST. Okay. Next. Next, banking and financial services. Banking and financial services. Okay. So interest or discount income. Interest or discount income. Regarding interest earned by way of deposit, loan or advances, this we have seen. This is what? Exempt from GST. So in exam, if it is given interest on FD or any deposit, loan, advances, it is exempt from GST. It is exempt from GST. Interest earned through credit card, it is taxable. Interest earned through credit card, it is taxable. And interest is sale or purchase of foreign currency. Interest is for sale or purchase of foreign currency, that is also exempt from GST. That is also exempt from GST. Now next, right to admission to various events. You remember If there is, a service by way of admission to museum, national park, wildlife sanctuary, tiger reserve, zoo, like this, it is exempt. It is exempt. And service by way of admission to a protected monument, like you are going, you are taking ticket of Taj Mahal. So is it exempt? Yes, it is exempt. The ticket of Corbett National Park, is it exempt? Yes. All these museum, national park, wildlife sanctuary, tiger reserve, zoo, admission, these all entry tickets are exempt from GST. GST will not be levied in this. Okay. Then service by way of admission to, that all we have seen, you remember. I'll open this entry once. Service by way of right to admission to what? You remember all these circus, dance, theatre performance, including drama, ballet, award function, concert, pageant, musical performance, or any sporting event other than recognized sporting event, and planetarium, where the consideration for right to admission to event or places referred to in this is not more than 500 per person. So all these A to D, where the consideration is less than 500, then it is exempt. If the consideration is more than 500, then it is taxable. Now next, one clarification we'll see. Clarification regarding applicability of GST on delay payment charges in case of late payment of EMI. What you have done? You have delayed the EMI. So there are two possible scenarios in this. The taxability of the additional penal interest, whatever the additional penal interest is levied, there two scenarios are possible, and on that basis the taxability is dependent. So taxability of additional penal interest on late payment of EMI. So in case of purchase of goods services on EMI basis, when you have purchased the goods and services only, you have purchased on EMI basis and you are delaying the EMI payment. For example, mobile you have purchased on EMI, you are paying it, for example 40,000 mobile you have purchased on EMI only, and you are delaying the EMI only. So in that case, the penal interest is levied to you, because you are delaying the EMI, penal interest is levied. That penal interest will be added in value of supply as per 15(2)(d), because it is what interest on late payment, so it will be added as per 15(2)(d). But if you have purchased the goods in cash, but you have taken loan from, for example, bank or somewhere else, you have taken the loan, so you have purchased the goods in cash by taking loan and delaying such EMI, in that case that interest on loan will not be included in your value, and it would be exempt. It would not be subject to GST. It will be covered under entry number 7027. How it would be covered? Because it is, you are delaying only the EMI portion, you are delaying the loan which you have taken. See, you have purchased the phone from a mobile shopkeeper of 40,000. You have taken a loan from a bank and you are delaying the EMI of bank. To the shopkeeper, you have already paid 40,000. Now you are delaying the EMI of bank. So that interest which will be levied on your delay of that is pure in the interest on loan, and that would be exempt. That would be exempt as per entry number 27. Interest on loan would be exempt. So there are two different treatments in these two cases. Next, clarification on issue of GST on monthly subscription contribution charged by RFS. So this chart we have already seen as a part of chart. Next, other exempt services. So few exempt services we will see what are that. So first is services provided to. Now it is what? To government entity. To government. You are providing service to governmental authority by way of what? Water supply, public health, sanitization, conservation, solid waste management, and slum improvement and upgradation. These 5 types. Service you have provided to governmental authority. Which services? Water supply, public health, sanitization, conservation, solid waste management, and slum improvement and upgradation. These five, okay. Water supply, public health, sanitization, conservation, solid waste management, and slum improvement and upgradation. So services provided to government authority by way of all these is exempt from GST. Next, Service by way of transportation of goods. What is the service? Transportation of goods by an aircraft from custom station of clearance in India to a place outside India. What is the service? Transportation of goods. Transportation of goods by what? Aircraft from custom station of clearance in India to a place outside India, or transportation by vessel from custom station in a clearance in India to a place outside India. Next, satellite launch service is always exempt. Whoever supplies, doesn't matter. Now what is that? Satellite launch services exempt from GST, exempt from GST. Then service of what? Public libraries. Service of what? Public libraries. Libraries by way of lending of books. We go to public library, we take books and all that. Any charges that they levy is exempt from GST. Lending book, publication or any other knowledge enhancing material. So service by public library is exempt from GST. Then service by organizer to any person in respect of business exhibition held outside India. So this question they ask many a times. What is the service which is exempt? Organizer. Service by an organization to any person in respect of business exhibition which is held outside India. If the business exhibition is held in India, then it is not exempt. Then it is not exempt. Okay. So service by an organizer to any person in respect of business exhibition held outside India is exempt from GST. Is exempt from GST. Then service by way of what? Preconditioning, pre-cooling, ripening, waxing, retail packing, labeling of fruits and vegetables which do not alter or change the essential characteristics of said fruit or vegetable is exempt from GST, is exempt from GST. Then service by a foreign diplomatic mission located in India, exempt from GST. Who is giving the service by? Foreign diplomatic mission which is located in India, exempt from GST. Very simple entries. Service by way of providing information under RTI Act. You all know Right to Information Act. So the service that the information that they provide, that is also exempt from GST. Any charges they levy is exempt from GST. Then service provided to government, central government, state government, union territory administration under any training program. So any service which you are providing to government for any training program for which 75% or more of the total expenditure is borne by the government, for which what 75% or more of the expenditure is borne by the government, is also exempt from GST, is also exempt from GST. And then service by way of public convenience, service by way of public convenience such as provision of facility of bathroom, washrooms, lavatories or all these, that is also exempt from GST, that is also exempt from GST. Okay, so these are what different exemption entries we have seen. We have seen all the important sectors. Now there are many clarifications which you can skip also at this moment of time, or you can do it if your time permits, you can do it, and if you are skipping it also, that is also okay. In exam the question will come from some or the other sector like healthcare sector, education, all these charitable entities, agriculture. These all are what very important sector as far as exams are concerned. Okay, so all those sector which we have done. So we have almost covered 95% of this chapter. Only 5% these clarification which are not important from exam point of view, we are just skipping in this marathon. Okay, so we'll stop our discussion over here beta for this chapter. Thank you for now.